Hello, and welcome to the Ebon podcast. We are getting ready to start off Act 3 of our Kotor cinematic adaptation, and the first stop on the way is Korriban, and we're going to have to make a stop along the way to pick up a guest because we have someone with us to talk all about this new location and get this film started off. Today we have Gabe with us. Gabe, how is it going? Welcome aboard the Ebon podcast.
Hello there. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I've been listening for a while, and I've just been fanboying all day to be here, so thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for taking the time out to come on. So I guess for everyone listening at home, Gabe, why don't you tell everyone out there a little bit about yourself, and then maybe kind of how you got into Knights of the Old Republic specifically, but Star Wars kind of more generally. What part of your life does that come into?
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, everyone who's listening, my name is Gabriel. I go by he, his, him pronouns, and I'm on the younger side of the Kotor side. I consider myself to be born in the wrong generation. I'm a 2001 baby, so I'm currently 20. I'm still in my undergrad. I'm studying poli-sci and IR at school, and I will definitely say the reason why I mention that is Star Wars has definitely influenced my own academic journey, and in this case, my own educational journey. So going back to it, I was a military child. I was born in Germany, and I moved around a lot when I was younger. And in 2006, one of my favorite moments of life that I keep reliving, I watched Episode 3 with my dad, Revenge of the Sith, and that was the first Star Wars movie that I've ever watched, and to this day it's still my favorite Star Wars movie, still my just favorite memory of life. One of the reasons is gonna take a quick turn here, but it was the last movie that I watched with my dad as he passed away soon after due to a car accident when we were moving. But to this day, Star Wars has always been a special place in my heart because he was a poli-sci major, and he would point out the parallels to me when we were watching. He and I would have our own lightsaber battles. I remember he bought me Yoda's and Anakin's lightsaber back when Episode 3 was the craze, and then eventually my cousins would help me on my Star Wars journey, show me the other movies, and we'd play Battlefront here and there. But it wasn't until I was at a family gathering after my dad passed away. I think it was my first Christmas, and I got so lucky playing White Elephant that the gift I opened was an Xbox, and I was like, whoa, nice. And I was like, dang, but I don't have any games for it. So luckily my aunts, who knew that I was crazy about Star Wars, were like, okay, we'll go to GameStop for you or Target and buy you a few games. And eventually they came back with Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 and Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, and Kotor, Knights of the Old Republic, and Knights of the Old Republic 2. And I was like, oh, okay, what's this? So me being the 5-6-year-old that I was, I'd boot them up. I knew how to play Battlefront because of my cousins and everything, and I knew Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy is pretty easy. You press the trigger on the controller, you swing the lightsaber. But when I booted up Knights of the Old Republic, I was like, this is the hardest game in my entire life because I have to read. And
yeah,
I used to be the kid who would just press A, skip the cutscenes, not really understand. But the older I got with the game and the more playthroughs I got, the more I fell in love with it. And I don't know how I kind of put it. My best friend helped me out with uncovering this, but I felt that like the movies were always my dad and my cousin's thing, and then they grew up on the 2002-2003 Clone Wars series, so that was their thing as well. But I finally had like kind of something that I knew for myself, which was the Old Republic era, the expanded universe, and Star Wars Legends that I can claim as my own nerd safe space. And so I finished Knights of the Old Republic 1. I was totally blown away. I remember I was terrible at understanding the attribute system though, so I boosted my strength all the way up and defeated Malik that way. But then I decided to play it again, and boy, I will tell you, I was totally immersed in the experience, and I tried finishing every side quest, and being an over completionist to the point where I'm like, okay, start at Kotor 2. And I was blown away even further diving into the universe, and I'm like, okay, I kind of became that toxic Star Wars fanboy who became the, you're not a real Star Wars fan if you don't like Darth Revan, but I eventually came around and was, I tamed myself down, but it just, Knights of the Old Republic became kind of my Star Wars identity, and it's what's made me enjoy Star Wars more than any other franchise in my entire fandom line. So yeah, that's me and my own Star Wars journey.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. That's definitely a good way to, get started into it. And yeah, it's weird how we each kind of come into Star Wars in our own way and our own time and our own different part of life. So that's really cool. And that's, yeah, definitely a good introduction into the Knights of the Old Republic world. I think those were some, good ants that went out and got you those. That's a great set of games to get you started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was funny because even though I didn't understand, she's like, I heard this game is super good. And I know she's just pointing to the Platinum Hits thing because she doesn't really play video games. And then she started pointing to Bastila, and she's like, I want to be her. I want to play as her. And I'm like, huh. So when I started, after I finished Terrace and everything, and I'm like, huh. So this is as much as you can play in terms of characters and playing as Bastila. Well, she's going to be disappointed, but I'm going to have the time of my life at this game then. So, yeah.
I'm glad Star Wars, means so much to you, and it's a cool... Everyone has their different branch of the Star Wars tree. Like, for me, it was the prequels and definitely KOTOR, but we're all climbing the same tree, as long as there's a tree, a healthy tree, it doesn't matter what part we all cling to, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to keep the memory of my dad alive with his own fascination with the Star Wars universe and share it with those close around me. So just keeping the cycle of love going. After all, they are a space drama and it's all about love, but just keeping what makes Star Wars, which is, as George Lucas puts it, family, at the core center of my own mission and vision in life, I'd say.
Yeah. That absolutely. And so what Cassie and I have been doing, over the last several episodes, we've been going through kind of our, imagining of what a Knights of the Old Republic film is going to look like. And, we've been definitely trying to tie into those, original Star Wars themes and, the themes that George Lucas brought to us in his movies and, kind of putting our own spin on it and thinking about how a 50-hour game is going to play into a movie. And that's, what we brought you on here today to talk about. We're getting ready to start the third act of our, Knights of the Old Republic trilogy. So just to do a quick recap. So in Act 1, if you played the game, you're probably pretty familiar with this because we go pretty linear to how you do the game. A little bit of changes up, but in Act 1, we're on the Endar Spire and we get to Terrace, rescue Bastila. We meet Mission and Big Z, Canderous and T3. There's a lot of things going on in Terrace. And then we go to Dantooine, meet up with the Jedi Council, meet Juhani, and we find the first star map. And that kind of sets us on the path through the game and through this film. And then we end the first film on Kashyyyk, where we meet Jolee. And we have the bulk of our party then at that point. And then we get into the second film, which is a little bit more of a downer. Everyone's kind of, gets kicked around a little bit. We, lose some party members, but, it's not all bad. We make a little bit more progress. So Act 2, we start out on Tatooine. We pick up everyone's, favorite assassin droid, HK-47. We get to Manon, and then we get captured on the Leviathan. But, Bastila, everyone's favorite Jedi, ends up going off with Darth Malak, and things are looking bad at the end of Act 2 for the team. So that brings us to right now. So we're starting Act 3 of our Knights of the Old Republic trilogy, And the first planet up for us is Korriban. So I guess to kind of break into this, I'm going to start with you, Gabe. So when you're playing the game and you get to Korriban, most people save that for the last of the planets you go to. Is that how you play it? And when you get there, what does your party look like, I guess, as you're going through the Sith Academy and, the Valley of the Dark Lords?
Yeah, for sure. So, in my initial playthroughs, I would consider myself to do a balanced playthrough. So I would visit every planet first, actually, and then do a little bit. And then when it's star map time, I do all of them at the same time to just get it over with. But when I started having the mindset, I want to have a Mullet Man canon playthrough, I definitely leave Korriban for last. And my party would usually consist of the OP Jedi party, as always, Juhani and Jolie, because I just need that force backup all the time. But then I switch it up every now and then, depending if a quest needs it, or if I just want to trigger some new lines that I haven't heard. So I get Canderous there, or I get HK, especially for that LeShow scene when there's different interactions every time. I love hearing their interactions around it. But then sometimes if I need the manpower, that Wookiee strength is always good, or I bring Zalbar along with Jolie and Juhani. But mostly it's always Jolie and Juhani.
That's who I usually take too, the Jedi, because I need the force heal all the time going, because I'm not that good at battling myself. But what about you, Cassia? When you land on Korriban, who are you taking when you're playing the game?
I kind of like to switch the party around. I don't know if I have a set people I would take in an adaptation. I mean, I think I would have certain characters just so everyone has screen time and party A, party B, but we can get into that later. But it's easier. Basically, it's like when you get Jedi in your team, you're kind of like, well, other people in the party, you're never going to see the light of day because I have Jedi now, so deal with that. But
that's kind of the whole thing in the High Republic, right? They're like, there's Jedi here, so we don't need anything else.
Yeah. Bye forever, other people. So
yeah.
Absolutely. For me, what always goes through my head when I'm picking the party is so Korriban is the Sith Academy planet. What would be the most ironic, comedic, or the most interesting companion to take through in the Sith Academy? And I just find it so funny that you can bring Jolie and Juhani and no one would bat an eye. They're like, oh, they're force sensitive, whatever. But then if you bring Karth, they're just like, oh, we don't know any Karthanasi here, and until of course he gets Dustil. But it's like you're just able to go freely through the Sith Academy with companions that are obviously sighted across the galaxy, and it just makes me laugh so much when I think about the
not
irony.
Really good security.
Yeah, no, not absolutely not. I'm like, wow, it's much better security on Manon than it is on Korriban. The Academy does not have this level. Wow.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you brought up Dustil. So as we get to Korriban, we have basically kind of two things that we need to have happen in order, in the game, and then also for our cinematic adaptation. The big one being we need to get the last piece of the star map. But the other thing that happens there is Karth is reunited with his son, which is pretty cool. I think it's a good opportunity to get Karth kind of back in the game. He had a lot of not very, very fun times in our Act 2. He always seemed to be, kind of bearing the brunt of all of this, kind of emotional stress and dismay and just a lot of, bad things and hurt feelings. So I think that this is a really good way to, get Karth picked back up a little bit here at the start of our third act. But what about you two? Is there anything else on Korriban as far as, a film goes? Is there anything kind of that you would like to see kind of wrapped up or, presented on here? Or, are those two things kind of the crux of what we're trying to get done?
I'd like to highlight is it a beautiful location or just iconic? I guess it's beautiful from a certain point of view. It's kind of like Egypt, it's like an old city where there's like a whole lot of tombs, a whole lot of statues, like gigantic statues, monoliths,
Hmm.
a whole lot to see, like the Valley of the Dark Lords, a Sith Temple, and a Sith Academy. Like, I feel like they'd all kind of have a different looks to them, and I think
Hmm.
it'd be cool to kind of make them all distinct, but kind of feel like part of this Korriban world.
Right. Yeah, because in the game there are kind of four like sections, I guess, of Korriban that you go through. So you land like in the little port area, which I think is called like Dresh Day, I think. Yeah, and then you go into like the Sith Temple Academy. You go through the caves, and then you come out into the Valley of the Dark Lords, which are all the tombs and stuff that look definitely like the Valley of the Kings kind of there in Egypt. But Gabe, I guess if you were going to be making a movie of this section, what do you think like these locations look like? Do you have any kind of inspirations or certain like colors or architecture or anything like that you just kind of see visually, right? If you took your camcorder to this place, what you'd point it at?
I would say the Egyptian vibes are there with the pyramids and the mummies and the tombs. That is definitely something. But I'm thinking like in Egypt and Petra, where everything is redstone and it's all grinded into the wall. Just like when you go to the Valley of the Dark Lords, on each side you see the huge monoliths and statues of each Sith Lord there. And it's what's always fascinated me whenever I go down there, aside from the excavation, is just how each tomb is built into the cave. Instead of them having their own built monuments, if that makes sense. Like when we go Egypt and you look at Egypt, you think of the pyramids, and then inside is a tomb of one of the pharaohs. But then when we think of the Sith Lords, it's like each one has their own little room in the wall, like it's a little house. And if you will, since I'm in college, it's literally a college dormitory for dead Sith Lords. So
Sure, yeah.
yeah. And so that's like what I'm imagining. And then in terms of like the Sith Academy, view it I would view it as something like out of the Last Crusade, where after Indy goes into Petra and looks for the chalice, he's surrounded by a lot of dark, vast catacombs and walls and tombs, and he just makes his way through. But it definitely, by having it like set inside that cave type of structure, it definitely gives that feeling of the Sith are so much bigger than they seem, and they are just interwoven and always hiding in the shadows, just like the typical Sith theme is at the end of the day. So that's what I kind of think about. And in terms of Dresh Day would kind of be like Cairo as well, or
Okay.
Cairo, Jerusalem,
The big
somewhere in the
city,
Middle East. Definitely a big city, but with a lot of desert around it. But what makes it distinct from Tatooine, I would say, is definitely the people there. Like how in Cairo, it's so, I'd say it's so modernized now, where like you have tech and industries everywhere, and just like how Zerka is in Dresh Day, and in like later comics when in Star Wars Legends, when Obi-Wan goes with Siri to Dresh Day, you see just the livelihood of Dresh Day, where it's truly a bigger city, but there's just merchants everywhere. And that's what I think would be the best place to like film a Dresh Day location.
That sounds pretty good to me. What about you, Cassia? For these kind of four locations, do you have, anything in mind, or just kind of maybe just kind of walk us through like what they'd look like from kind of the time we land to get there?
I think like if you kind of just mix Mars with Egypt, and I like what you said about Petra, just kind of like old cities, like the Valley of the Dark Lords. You can really kind of just see some art, like Sith hieroglyphs and all that. And like what I like about the game is it kind of highlights the futility of the dark side. Like the Sith don't want to die. They try to cling on to the body and flesh in this life. You kind of see that with Palpatine too, but like you kind of just see like at the end of it, they're kind of just miserable. I mean, if that could be kind of highlighted, that would be cool. And then the Sith Temple and the Sith Academy. I think like if you kind of just show it's kind of like an evil Hogwarts, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that would be fun. And like if you have Revan who like he's kind of not revealing himself, it's almost like Odysseus in the Odyssey when he comes back to his home island on Ithaca, and he kind of has to like reveal himself at the best time, you know, like because at the end he kind of just like is like he's able to draw the bow and just like shoot the shot, and then it's bye bye suitor time, you know, and that's what I kind of see like the end of maybe an adaptation being. So that's what I kind of see everything, but I'm kind of just like artists have fun. Let's have a blue sky period, you know, like
Right.
let your imagination run wild. So
Yeah, I think it would be. I think just in general, it would be very surreal to see it with a huge, a couple $100 million budget to see this place. But yeah, I think my thoughts are kind of in line with both of yours. I think Dress Day. I don't think that it needs to be built up as quite as much of a city. Maybe it's just kind of like a landing area and then sort of like a grand bazaar kind of a place that you're just kind of walking through. Not as much of a city, but kind of just this marketplace. But I do think that the market's going to be heavily leaning into more like black market type items. So weapons and explosives and spice and all that stuff that you might have on a Sith ruled planet there. Now, as far as the temple and academy go, I kind of envision that as like kind of a monastery, but it wouldn't be like very like plainly adorned like you would think of a monastery. It would be very highly adorned because these are Sith, and they're all about power and presumably riches and things like that. So you'd have a lot of kind of like rich tapestries and mosaics and things like that hanging up on the walls, just to kind of give like I don't know, kind of like the opposite sides of this. You have kind of, like I said, kind of this monastery type of thing, but then it's just gilded with all of these riches and jewels and artwork and stuff like that. I do think that it would be interesting in the Sith Temple Academy if like the color scheme and like the lighting was like kind of like this red and purple sort of thing to kind of play on like Revan's color scheme. Because I don't know if we need to see like direct references to Darth Revan, but maybe just kind of play on that. So like visually, you're getting some nods to this was, Darth Revan's jam. This is where he was hanging out, not all that long ago.
because in ancient Egypt, when there'd be a new pharaoh, they would sometimes just like chisel out the name of the old pharaoh and like put their name on top. I kind of wonder if Malik would kind of like have done that with Revan, or if they would still kind of like cling on to the idea of being Revan, or if Malik would have like kind of rooted that out. But I don't know. The thing about the Sith is like there's not the rule of two yet, but they're all trying to be number one, but there's a hierarchy, It's almost like they kind of have a class system, but they all want to be at the top. So it would be cool to kind of see what it would look like 4,000. I was going to say BCE, but BBY,
BBY. Now I'm just picturing like a maintenance worker like scraping Revan's name off of the office door and like putting up Malik like you see in the movies. But yeah, I definitely could see something like that. Maybe there would still be Darth Revan stuff because maybe they don't want all of the Sith acolytes and things knowing that Revan has been captured and turned back by the Jedi. Maybe they're kind of sweeping that under the rug, I guess, a little bit. So maybe there is still some stuff about him.
Yeah, and part of it is kind of like I don't think Malik was as charismatic or powerful as Revan. So like even though I think like Malik is trying to like place himself in a place of prominence, they might just not respect him as much as like maybe they respected or feared Revan.
It's funny that you say that, because it's like, you know, playing Galaxy of Heroes, if you compare the two Kates, like, Malik is always portrayed as a brute. And even in Kotor 2, when you see, like, old Malik, when he's still out, like, recruiting people, and you compare both models of Revan and Malik together, you just see the size difference. And I would definitely say it reminds you of, like, that one scene in Shrek where it's, like, Lord Farquaad, and then Shrek says, like, oh, he must be compensating for something. Like, I think Malik just doesn't... Malik definitely has an inferiority complex. And what I can see also is him actually telling people to make statues of him inside the Sith Academy, or to prepare his tomb in Korriban, is just feeding into that theme. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, it's just feeding into that theme that's like that. And I'd also say, like, you know, going back to the Starforge line when he calls Revan a loner, when in reality it's really him. Like, he's projecting his own insecurities. And now I can kind of see that, even like that's how the entire Sith Academy is feeling, like going into the characters and what they look like. Like, Yuthara is totally insecure about her attraction to the light. Uthar is insecure about Yuthara. Dustil is insecure about his dad's influence in the Republic, and everyone's just carrying a chip on their shoulder. So, I don't know, like, whenever I think of Korriban, it's the hive of insecurity, if you will, and it's the place to really test your demons. And I think one great moment that now I think about it is the Tomb of Ajanta Pal, where after you find his sword and everything, then he appears and he's like, I'm alone, I've definitely have made the wrong choices in life, I'm so cold. And you just have that great opportunity to redeem him and to make him realize, like, this is your insecurity, this is your path. And it kind of, if we go into film logic, like the initiating action, Korriban is the initiating action of Kotor. It's the story of redemption, that despite you feeling so weak and insecure, you always have that chance to redeem yourself on the good side, rather than feed into your insecurities and strive for power like the Sith do.
That's a really good takeaway, and that's something you could definitely, you know, lean into and explore, is, you know, that all of these powerful Sith lords, you know, at the end of the day, they were, you know, they were just alone and insecure and, you know, power hungry and jealous. And that's, you know, how they lived their life. And that's how they, you know, carried it over into the, I guess, you know, when they rejoin the Force or whatever the Sith do. We haven't really, I guess, explored that too much, at least that I'm familiar with. But yeah, definitely some good stuff there.
Or chaos. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also funny because, you know, you mentioned that about each Sith Lord being a loner, but when we think of the star map's location, the Tomb of Nagasado, if we go back to the comics, Nagasado was never buried on Korriban. Like, he died alone on Yavin 4. And even in Kotor 2, when we think about Ludo Kresh, you don't go to Ludo Kresh's tomb in Kotor 1, because Ludo Kresh also died alone. And he was just forgotten by the Sith until Krea's like, oh, look, it's a tomb that you can go in and learn more about yourself. And even in Kotor 2, it's a place of combating your insecurities as well, to redeem yourself. So Korriban definitely has that theme. And I love what you said about the lighting too, because I think Korriban is the place of dealing with your past and making amends for your future. And so it's like Revan feeling that he's surrounded by his past, and he's making decisions to be the better person in the future, even though he already knows who he is by now.
Yeah, for sure. And then just to wrap up kind of the way I see it, and you touched on the tombs there a little bit, and you'd both had said, you know, the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, Petra, and that's exactly how I see it too, right? You have these big, huge statues and tombs, obelisks, Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, you know, so everything's very dusty, obviously. It's out like in this, you know, wasteland of a desert. So you get like, you know, very low lighting, like torches. I would like to see them using the lightsabers as lights, like we see in Jedi Fallen Order, because that's awesome in the game, and I think that that would be really cool, just to ignite those and have it illuminate these big ancient tombs. I think would be pretty cool. So that's kind of how I envision kind of the different sections of Korriban. Anyone have anything else to add about the way that kind of Korriban is going to look in our proposed film, or in your own mind?
Me, I think we nailed it.
Yeah, I think all the mise-en-scène is there to really capture the theme of what you're trying to get at for Act 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we nailed it too, and that it's going to look great. So why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Gabe to talk a little bit more about what we have going on Korriban for our Act 3.
So at the beginning of Act 3, there's a few characters. There's Revan, Karth, Bastila, and then Juhani, Jolie, and Canderous, the rest of the crew, and Darth Malak. Like, starting with the big three, Revan, Karth, and Bastila, where do you see them, like, at the beginning of the film? And we can start with you, Gabe.
Yeah, so I think at this point, the Leviathan has already happened, so Bastila must be long gone. But I think if you're going to start out Act 3, you would definitely host an initiating action, probably on Lahan, with the cinematography showing something of, like, just like how I'm thinking of the Coen brothers' I forgot the movies with Javier Bardem.
No Country for Old Men?
Yeah, there you go. You start off not only with Tommy Lee Jones's monologue, but you start off with the plateau. And my film teacher taught me this, that, like, the plateau and the sky and the ground resemble the three forces at play with each character. And when you have Josh Brolin's character always interfering in Tommy Lee Jones's and Javier Bardem's character, he's the plateau. Like, he is figuratively the disruption in the balance. And so I would imagine them on Lahan with Malak interrogating Bastila, but with, like, a shot that's definitely going towards the light, where it's like you start off in the dark tombs of the temple and you go out to the light, and it's the initiating action of coming back. And that's what you get for the third act, for the third movie, of Revan coming back. And then with the light transition, then you have the Ebon Hawk come in and station itself in Dreshte through, like, a kind of transition with the suns. And that's how you begin yourself. And everyone is kind of on edge, I would say. Like, Karth is still kind of bumbling from Act 2, how no one tells him anything and he has his trust issues. Probably Mission and Zalbar are playing a game somewhere in the Ebon Hawk or talking about something. Canderous is probably weightlifting or training. And then Jolie is probably just reading a holodisc. And Juhani is meditating. And then Revan just walks in and he's like, why is no one talking to each other? Like, we're a team, and I know the Leviathan tested all of us, and now you all know who I am, but that can't be something you change about me, right? And then no one is still talking to each other, but once you get there, then they're kind of forced into it. And they'd all talk on the Ebon Hawk and be like, okay, this is Dreshte, Zerka owns this, but it's the Academy, which is a problem. And everyone provides their own commentary, but then Revan just recenters everyone, like, we're a team, guys. Let's get the plan. And everyone, Mission and Zalbar are like, okay, if you need us, we're here. HK is just like, at this point, I'd say HK starting to have his memory restored, and he's like, ooh, Korriban, master, I'm happy to be back. And then everyone just looks at HK and is like, wait, you know what's here? And HK's like, of course I do. And gives them kind of the rundown and probably throws in, like, a few assassination stories here and there, which probably will be, like, super outlandish that everyone gets a laugh at. But it's kind of that, it's a place or the tension is really felt, and the Korriban will be the planet that reunites them all, because they each have to confront with the inner demon within themselves, and that inner demon is how to accept their friend back into the group, how to make sure that they can trust Revan after finding out that he's Revan. So that's kind of like how I would envision the beginning, and where everyone is and what everyone's talking about, and where Malik and Bastila are interacting, and you just know that Bastila is being converted while they're on Korriban.
Yeah, no, that's a really good rundown. It's important to remember when you're starting this film, you're coming off of the end of Act 2, and at the end of Act 2, everything that could possibly go wrong for this group has gone wrong, basically. So everyone is at their lowest of low points. So as we're getting this started, it's, you have to remember that that's kind of where everyone's starting out. So I guess for me to start Act 3, you're going to see Bastila doing kind of like a monologue to herself, where she's narrating it as we're seeing her going to Lihan, basically just talking about her relationship with Revan and about how she had, redeemed him, and she can, I don't know, unredeem him, I guess. I don't know how to say that, but basically, she's turned him once. She can, turn him back, to a complete 360, get him back to Darth Revan. So it's kind of like this monologue that's just kind of catching us up, I guess, a little bit on, where the second act ended. And then as that's playing out, we're seeing her on Lihan, and then, screen wipe, you see the Ebon Hawk flying in. It would be awesome to, kind of fly in overhead and see the Valley of the Dark Lords, kind of like how you see like the Las Vegas Strip when you're flying into Las Vegas, just these huge monuments that you're coming in over top of, and then it lands, and, the party kind of leaves. So for me, the way I'm kind of breaking up the party, so we've got Revan, and I'm taking Jolie, Canderous, and T3. They're going to get through the temple and out into the Valley of the Kings. And I'm going to have Karth, HK, and Juhani in the temple. So they're going to take care of what we have going on in the temple. And the others are going to be out into the Valley of the Kings, going through the tombs, looking for the last star map. Mission and Zalbar are informed that they're going to be staying with the Ebon Hawk because, for protection's sake, not that they couldn't handle themselves out there, but need to have someone stay with the ship. This is a dangerous place, and we might need to get out of here in a hurry. But I think that breaking up the party this way, and we're going to go kind of when we go through our little pitch, kind of get into a little bit more about what these characters are going to be doing. But that's how I'm going to break it up. Now, as far as Malik goes, in my mind, Malik should totally be on Korriban because he knows that's where we're going. So I'm not sure why he doesn't go there. I think it's because he's just very overconfident in thinking that he has Bastila now. He's already, usurped Revan as the chief of the bad guys, and doesn't really have anything to fear. So maybe we check in on him a few times up in the Leviathan. Maybe he's over top or making his way to the Starforge, although I don't really want to see the Starforge yet in the film, but maybe he's just on his way there, so we kind of check in with him, and maybe he's talking a little bit with Bastila back and forth over the comms or something like that. But that's how I have the party kind of set up to begin the Act 3. What about you, Cassia? How do you have everyone getting this party started, our Act 3?
All right. This might be a very in-depth party, but we'll see if it makes sense.
No, I like it.
I mean, I think we talked a bit about this in our ring theory episode and like our overview of Act 3, but I would actually begin in median res with a bit of a flashback, kind of the lead up to the first time Revan and Bastila like fought on Revan's flagship, and then you kind of see like the Jedi Strike team kind of like approach the starship themselves, fight their way onto there, and then you get a little bit of a beginning of a showdown with Bastila and Revan, but then Darth Malik sees his opportunity and takes it, like a jawless coward. And then you have Bastila be like, I could end this guy, but then she does the Jedi thing and decides to save him and creates a bond. And then you kind of see an impressionistic, kind of lead up of events. Like the Jedi Council is like, we could really like kind of imprint like a totally new identity on this guy and find star maps. Like, what do you think about that? And then like the formation of his identity as a Republic soldier, and then like maybe Bastila talking to Traskolgo, and then kind of like the lead up to the attack on the Endar Spire, and then the lead up of like kind of snippets from Act 1 and Act 2 leading up to the present moment where Bastila is on the dark side. And like what I would do is like you kind of see like Bastila is in space. She opens her eyes like because like it's kind of just like the thoughts are coming to her, like she hasn't left it but behind. Like I think she kind of wants to be with the Force dyad, but she's just in a dark place, and like her mind just keeps going to that, but even though like in my mind like the Force bond, Force dyad isn't really active at the moment, because I think like when Revan learned that Bastila lied to him, it kind of broke the trust in the bond for now. So I think like Bastila kind of opens her eyes, like she was thinking of it like as she was meditating or something, and then you kind of see the silhouette in front of Lihan, like the silhouette of the Starforge, just so like you kind of don't see it quite until you see it in its full glory later. And in my mind it would be bronze, just to switch it up from like gray Lego sets, and to kind of evoke another age. And then in my mind, actually, you kind of just start with Revan, Juhani, and Canderous approaching a tomb. Like, you don't really need to show them landing on Korriban. Like, you kind of show them in the middle of things, too. Like, they kind of have to go through some challenges to get, like, an artifact or kind of prove their mettle, to the evil Hogwarts Sith Academy. And you kind of bring the loot to the Sith Academy. And whoever came up with the names in KOTOR, I think Uthara and Uthar, they're very, very similar. And like maybe should have been like, okay, this guy is Garrett, just like so these names are different, But you could probably like show like Uthara is kind of more goodish and Uthar is evil. Mm-hmm. And kind of while Juhani and Revan and Canderous are kind of doing their tomb mission to get that artifact, you could kind of show like Karth and Jolee, like kind of like, so like each half of the team is protected, there's a Jedi with them. And I think Jolee would kind of know that Karth needs someone to talk to, a mentor, like a therapist, if you will, and just kind of help him like talk through things, because Karth needs to, I think his character arc is to be able to learn to trust again. And I think if he comes face to face with his son and realizes like, my son needs a second chance, Revan deserves a second chance, people who fall to the dark side, like even if it's Bastila, like they deserve second chances, like Karth can kind of work through his issues and be like, my son is alive and he has potential, and just because he might have turned to the dark side once, like it doesn't have to be permanent, and he can kind of work through that and be like, if I'm going to give Dustil a second chance, I can give my friend Revan, who I've done a lot with, a second chance, Mm-hmm. And then I think, like, whoever plays Revan, and in my mind I'm kind of just imagining Ben Barnes, because if it has to be the mullet guy, why not an age-appropriate mullet guy, And, like...
Yeah.
it's kind of like he's Revan, but he's just waiting for the right time to like kind of reveal it. And I think he's going to kind of lead a coup at the Sith Academy. And I think like his intentions are good, but also self-serving. So like maybe an argument could be made like this is a light side choice or this is a dark side choice, you know, like because I kind of don't want it to feel like Revan is set until Lehan when he makes that choice. So like you kind of get a feel like this could go either way. And then kind of like after the coup, Revan finds the star map. And then I think like when he gets it, he's like, he would go alone. And he's like, this is something I have to do alone, you know, like to the people in his party. I think he would have a vision of Jedi Revan, like pre-Mandalorian Wars, Darth Revan, and the future Revan. And then I think he would kind of like have to like, I don't know if it would be a fight, like a lightsaber fight, or like a debate, like he's debating himself or like something, but it's like, it's kind of like he has to fight himself and be like, this is who I am, you know, like comes face to face with like, this is who I was, this is who I am, this is who I will be, you know, he has to kind of like come to terms with like his identity and what it means. You know, maybe you could even have like a Republic soldier version of him there, you know, and like Jedi, like Padawan, neophyte Padawan. And I think, so he's coming to terms with his identity, and like, I don't really foresee like there being a dark side Funko Pop of Bastila for sale at the Dresde, you know, market, but I think like Jolie would have probably talked to him and been like, Bastila's probably gonna be on the dark side next time you come face to face with her, and I think like he would be like, no matter what, I'm gonna try to save her when I see her again, you know, maybe something like that. And then I think like Jolie, Karth, Candace, and Juhani would join him, the adults of the group, you know, and then like the map is complete and it'll be beautiful, like Star Wars version of medieval star charts. Like let's make that happen. And then in my mind, like Uthara and any redeemed Sith would show up later at the Starforge, like the final battle. And then in my mind, like Uthar survives, you know, and he would lead the unredeemed Sith. So just Sith, you know, on the Starforge. Just because I don't want to spend too much time on Korriban, but like just so like there can be some resonance later and some consequences, just to kind of tie it all together. I'm fine with that. Revan, kind of like in Act 1, I think his power level kind of reflects like his knowledge of himself. Like I think he's a bit lower than Bastila. And then in Act 2, kind of equal to Bastila, but lower than Malik. But I think after he kind of realizes who he is, and kind of comes to terms with that, like a vision of himself, he regains and surpasses his old self. Because I kind of think like the light side, it might not be as like quick and easy as the dark side, but it's more powerful, you know? And I think like you'll kind of see that reflected in Darth Revan, because I think he's going to be more confident in himself, and Darth Malik I think is going to feel inferior and kind of like have something to prove and like kind of be out of control.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think. Because he's basically going back to this place where he's being thrust back into all of this power, but now he has kind of the balance of both sides. He's not just on, you know, kind of one side or the other, so he can take all of the goods, so to speak.
Yeah, I think one thing, Cassia, that you said was super interesting was the fact that we don't have enough time to do everything on Korriban. Like, we can't do every single tomb, we can't do every single academy quest to gain Uthar's favor. So it's like, I think the hard part for me to envision it about translating it on screen would be what is crucial, what is core to the Korriban scene that we have to keep. And what I'm thinking, I definitely love everything you're saying. I do think a Territarch battle would be cool, like just Revan versus both of them, and he just have to think about something quick. But definitely, like, I kind of disagree. I would like to see Uthar and Yuthara there, because for me, I think keeping the theme of redemption, that everyone deserves a second chance, Yuthara's place of getting redeemed would be great. I think if you spend an hour at most on Korriban, how I would see it play out is you actually press delete on Dresh Day entirely, and you just have it as the Sith Academy spaceport. And then so you can skip the entire part where Yuthara has to give you the medallion to go in, but you immediately arrive there, and Uthar and Yuthara would come out and be like, okay, welcome to Korriban, and they would be like, okay, so you need to prove that you're a true Sith, and then probably that's where Kartzi's dust will come out as well, and then they all head into the academy together. There's and then there's kind of just like, I'd say this quest montage maybe, like you can see Revan restudying the Sith code, and then reporting it back to Uthar, and then talking to Yuthara, asking for like tutoring, and eventually it comes to like the true test of the Sith is the Tomb of Nagasado. But on the way to the tomb, they can sprinkle in the little Easter eggs of that tomb is a Junta Paws, there's Ludo Creshes, there's Tulak Hordes, there's Marco Ragnoses, and on the way you can like have, I'd say like Revan have his flashbacks there where he sees himself walking in. I'd say when he's definitely inside the tomb of Nagasado, what you said, Cassie, about facing his inner demons and the ghost, what I think about is that deleted Clone Wars episode where it's Darth Bane and Revan speaking to the sun, but instead of it being the sun, it's Revan having to confront both his Jedi and his Sith side instead of Darth Bane and Revan in the tomb. Kind of like how in Avengers and Endgame they have the Soul Stone sequence. It's kind of like that, and it not only hints at SWTOR's like little story of how Revan has to separate himself in order to survive with his good and dark side, but it's showing his internal conflict. But that flash of light in the end leads into the star map, and it shows that he will be redeemed. So just adding on to everything you said with the little tweaks there.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, you would see Yuthara and Uthar, but you'd kind of get more of a sense that, like, stuff happened off screen with them, but you would get the impression that Yuthara could be redeemed and would be redeemed, and, like, you kind of see that, and, like, there would be, like, she would side with Revan and, like, his good faction, you know, and some of the Sith students would join, you know, kind of be redeemed, you know, and then like some would stick with Uthar, you know, and I'm not married to the idea that Uthar survives, but you kind of get like the vibe of it. But I feel like if a movie were made, you could maybe have some comic tie-ins lead, like, that kind of show like how everyone got there and like the setup of everything.
No,
Sure.
absolutely. I think one thing also that I just remembered and wanted to bring up was I love your coup idea, because I remember like after you defeat Uthar and Yuthara inside the tomb, you go back and everyone's trying to kill you. But I remember on your episode about the Leviathan, Brian and Cassie, you guys were talking about what the Leviathan means, and going back into my books of being a student, I just think it's interesting that when we're talking about the entire theme of redemption or like ways of ruling the world and the Jedi and Sith, it's going to political philosophy. It's the Hobbesian thing, and I think something that would be interesting is a battle of philosophy that when Revan comes as well, and Jolie will kind of whisper in his ear as well. That I can see like Revan as a very Nietzschean philosopher. Like you can't abide to aesthetic ideas, to the light and dark, but have to keep that gray balance with Jolie, like mentoring him. But the Sith are ruled by Hobbesian thought, with the idea of the Leviathan and the Sovereign having to rule over. So when you defeat them in the tomb, Revan comes back, and instead of just like a coup or a physical battle coup, it's a coup of philosophy, where Revan maybe will make a speech and is like, wait a second, the way of the Sith is all about succumbing your individualism and human rights that the Jedi teaches us to keep our own self-control, and we succumb to a sovereign, that being Malak. And Revan convinces them to turn back to the light in that manner. And of course some don't, but that's how I would see the coup kind of start, where it's the battle of political philosophy and what the light and the dark actually is, compared to the gray that Jolie is trying to go up with, like Nietzschean thought. So wanted to sprinkle that in there as well when I'm thinking about how to make rich dialogue instead of another hallway action-packed scene, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if Brian likes hallway scenes, but I'm kind of like, no.
Yeah, no,
we don't need those.
Yeah, I remember whenever I listen to your podcast, I'm like snapping all the time. I'm like, yes, no hallway scene. Let's have another philosophical battle and talk about Star Wars, and bring it to a relevant topic of philosophy about our lives and what it means to succumb or subscribe to different systems of governance and ways to live and decide and, you know, serve others, if you will.
Yeah. Star Wars needs more politics, I think. That's why I loved the prequels, just kind of like, you kind of just see it sprinkled throughout, and then you kind of just see the culmination of it, like, how does a democracy turn into an empire, you know? And yeah, it's kind of become a little depressing the last few years, I don't know, just like, there's a George Lucas quote where it's like, I'm paraphrasing him, but like, he's like, there's not a violent takeover, power is given over, you know? And
right.
Yeah, you kind of see it like throughout history and like throughout the world, you know? And I like what you bring up about philosophy, because like, I feel like Jolie and perhaps Juhani and like Jedi Revan and Redeemed Bastila would probably subscribe to like a different philosophy at the end of Act 3, because I think like with the Jedi, I would say like, if I just had to choose between Jedi and Sith, I would definitely go with the Jedi, but it's kind of lacking, because it's kind of just like, you can't feel emotion. There's no emotion, no attachments.
Yeah, there's
you know,
no emotion.
like, you have
there
to
is
stay in
peace.
control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, so like, it's kind of like you can't really be connected to anything or feel things. But then, like, with the Sith, it's like, you can feel all the things. You don't have to be in control, you know, like, just feel everything all the time in all the extremes, you know? And, like, there's kind of not, like, a synthesis of the philosophies, and I always kind of thought there would be one in the sequel trilogy, but that didn't really happen. So I just kind of wonder if, like, at the end you kind of get, like, for lack of a better term, like the gray Jedi code, where it's like, there is emotion, but there is peace, you know, there is ignorance, but there is knowledge, you know, like, you kind of like accept that you can't control everything, but you're open and you're growing and you're not anxious. And it's kind of like about learning the balance in yourself, you know, but bringing the balance to the Force means being in balance yourself.
No, that's
Sure.
awesome.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to kind of weave that story, because we have, you know, the majority of our characters here kind of going in and out of light side and dark side. Not necessarily allegiances, but maybe like in their mindset going in and out. So I think that just the story in general lends itself more to having more philosophical discussions, because our characters are seeing both sides of it. It's not like in some other Star Wars stories where there's good characters and bad characters, and then at the very end, there's redemption, but there's kind of redemption going on throughout this whole thing for a handful of these characters. So I think that it just lends itself to telling those types of stories more in this setting with these protagonists.
Well, absolutely. I think another awesome thing that I've always thought whenever I play the game is that Korriban is the Sith homeworld. Of course, it's not no Drummond cast, but it's a Sith homeworld. But then you were like in Kotor's world, the Jedi homeworld, which is Dantooine. And when you compare the two landscapes too, it's the two philosophical ideas. It's very black and white in Kotor. I'm sure every Kotor fan will high five each other on this, but like Dantooine is lush and green, but Korriban is dry, sandy, it's hot, coarse, and it gets everywhere, like it's just not a happy place. And so I think when Revan gives his little philosophical speech along with Jolie, not only is this a great moment to give that speech, but if there are two planets that are in common with the Kotor games, it's both Dantooine and Korriban, except that when you visit both planets in Kotor 2, the seed has been planted when Revan was at the academy, and you can have that as like a flashback later on if you make the Kotor 2 movies. It's like both may be black and white, but then at the end of the day they both came to ruin. And so it's Revan has the opportunity to not just set the seed for future movies, but set the seed in people's minds that we can't just subscribe to Sith and Jedi, but we have to search for what is universal good, what is universally what we're called to do. And I think by doing that, that will definitely put the swords and the lightsabers down in the academy and cause people to think. And maybe at that moment, Dustil will be maybe the one who actually says, like, he's right. And he inspires his friends then to start fighting back. And that's when the fighting starts. And then they run out of the academy before like the Dark Jedi Masters try to kill Revan. But at least the message was sent. And that's what starts the infighting for, the future Kotor 2 movie when you see the academy abandoned.
Oh, I love the idea with kind of highlighting Dustil.
Yeah, I don't know, because one thing that always strikes me about Star Wars, okay, now anyone who's listening, hot take from me, but keep politics in Star Wars. Anyone that says I keep politics out of Star Wars, it is, as a person of color, and growing up as an Asian American, everything is political, whether it be our rights, their discussions of philosophy, or how we engage with people. Everything is political, as polis in Greek means like the people, and that's where every system of governance comes from. And so recentering that within Kotor, I think that's what gives Kotor its power and its allure, especially Kotor 2 gets into this. But using Korriban as that stage, it's, as it is Act 3, it's the climax of the philosophical challenge of what makes Star Wars, the battle between light and dark, between good and evil, to see if our categorical definitions of things are truly what they're meant to be, or what we are told they are meant to be. But instead, it's Revan telling us, kind of, in lack of a better word, but like Revan as a prophet, Revan telling us that there is no light and dark. There is only the Force. Just like how Cal in Fallen Order in every Star Wars game says, trust in the Force. That's what the Force is, kind of the conscience of altruistic behavior, but remembering that there is still compassion and feelings matter from both sides. And it just sets the stage for, I'd say, what will and to come when you go to Lahan and you go to the Starforge, where it's like Malak tells you that you are alone, and savior, hero, conqueror, like you have both extremes, but by being at Korriban, it's when you complete the extremes, when you complete that you were at the extreme of the light on Dantooine, now you're at the extreme of the dark on Korriban, but you finally see that you can't subscribe to an extreme. You have to find your own definition of good and communicate that to others, and that's what causes the Sith to break apart. And even if you go into Kotor 2, that's what brings up nihilists and nihilism, where the challenge of what is the Sith supposed to be after that, because Revan just destroyed their entire philosophy at the Academy, where you're supposed to indoctrinate and breed thought. But yeah, sorry, super long-winded thought, but I just...
Oh, it's an excellent thought.
Yeah, I just love the philosophy of Star Wars, and I would say this is like the perfect Easter egg moment to like name drop people, and maybe Revan can be like, I had a teacher named Kreia or something like that, or just set up the stage for Kotor 2 movies right here and then, especially that, our first trilogy of movies are ending. Now we can have the sequel trilogy of our OT of Kotor.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I think
definitely name drop Kreia. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely name drop her. But yeah, I think it paints a very striking message to many of the students or acolytes there at the Sith Academy, just seeing Revan kind of retake his full identity out in the Valley of the Dark Lords, and is coming back with these relics from the the ancient Sith Lords, and just seeing him being able to not go down that path, I think just sends a very strong message to the students, just seeing his actions as much as the words there as well. So yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot to play on as far as stories of redemption, and not just a single character's redemption, but for whole sort of ideals that these students are holding.
And I love what you say about like politics and philosophy, because I think like there can be more introspection and like thinking throughout Star Wars, not just simplistic, like good, bad, stormtrooper, rebel, and like, and just kind of the ramifications of what it means for culture, because I mean, like, a lot of people just kind of like wherever they stand on certain things, like sometimes they just are like, oh, this person said to do this, so I'm just going to do this, and because I'm a free thinker, and they said to do this, and they're a good thinker, so I should just do it. But it's like you kind of just have to think about what you're doing and why, like no matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing. And just like for Revan to kind of be able to kind of talk with Jolee and kind of think things through, like it's not like he's just kind of regurgitating what Jolee says, like, but kind of just like making a synthesis of his identity and like being like, this is the way to go.
No, absolutely. Like, it's the perfect moment to also just make politics and philosophy relevant about our lives now I'm thinking about it. I think you said something earlier, Cassie, about like the Jedi lacking compassion, and going back to my film teacher who just opened up the Star Wars movies for me. I think at this moment it's the best place to talk about, or just say the theme straight out of the prequel trilogy, where although you are good, don't let your hubris eat you. Because if you go to Clone Wars, the Jedi Council literally said, let's keep the clones silent. And going back to Kotor, if you look at Vrook is literally the thesis of a quote-unquote ideal Jedi. Just a uncompassionate, self-righteous good guy. But then when we look at Malik and Revan, when they both were corrupted by Vitiate, they're the same people, but instead they use it out of feeling, where Malik is like, I must attain power with Revan and conquer the Republic in order for us to be good. Like, they were too caring from the Mandalorian Wars that it turned them evil as well. So this speech that Revan can give at the Academy to start the coup is more out of a reflection, like, I fought in the Mandalorian Wars and it ruined me. And I was also a Jedi and I lacked compassion and I only focused on the mission that I lost the one who I love. And he hinted at that's Bastila, and then Jolie would probably smile there, and he's like, but now I implore you, fellow students of this academy, to not act out of your passions and fight for something because you want to, but fight for yourself and for others and apply compassion or serve others, if you will. He wouldn't say something like serve the light, but he would say something along the lines like he says in SWTOR, like, be you, be yourself, and don't subscribe to just schools of thought. In other words, like, I'm just thinking very Nietzschean thought, be the Ubermensch, be your own person. And I think that would inspire the students to be like, especially Dustil, who again has the insecurity, as I talked about earlier, being in Karth's shadow, to actually take ownership of his own life and be like, you know, instead of fighting for the Republic or fighting for the Sith, I'm going to fight for myself. And what I love or who I miss is my dad. And my dad came for me. Out, despite risking his life, he came for me. And that kind of idea of love that goes back to the prequel and original trilogy and how Vader saves his son brings back the essence of Star Wars. And, you know, Karth, actually, Cassie, now that I think about it, you're talking about names, Karth and Darth, like, Vader chose to save his son in Return of the Jedi, Luke, and Karth does the same. He risks his life for Dustil. And just this speech, this kind of pinnacle moment of the Korriban side just changes everyone. And as I was kind of thinking how everyone's on edge, it brings everyone back in together and brings back to why we love Star Wars, which is the friends, family, and focus on developing our own individualism. Just like how in Rise of Skywalker, Rey chooses not to be a Palpatine, but she chooses for herself to be a Skywalker. So it's the perfect time to bring back everything about Star Wars into a philosophical speech that inspires that coup. And then the fighting starts, you know. Then you can have the Darth Revan choir start singing again while everyone tries killing him. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember one question you asked me. I like what you said about, like, the thesis statement of the prequels. So I remember a question you asked me once, what is the thesis statement of KOTOR? And my answer was that anyone can become a better person and that redemption is possible. So I'm going to ask you and Brian what you guys think the thesis statement of KOTOR 1 is.
For me, so Knights of the Old Republic, the thesis statement, the overarching narrative of it is that you are not destined to, you know, live by your past decisions, and that there is redemption for anyone. It's about the choices you make going forward. And, you know, this game came out in 2003. It's a role-playing game. The game is largely built around the choices that you make. And that, you know, that really kind of ties into the thesis here. It's not about the life you've lived and the choices that you have made in the past and the decisions you made, but the decisions you make going forward. And that, like I said, that anyone can be redeemed or, you know, experience redemption, as, you know, as long as you're open and willing to, you know, to make, you know, different decisions and guide yourself.
So when I think of Revan and his story, even taking the tidbits from Kotor 2 that Kreia gives us on the backstory of Revan being power, I think of Revan as a philosophical idea. In other words, I think of him as a parable. So I'm going to go back to the Bible here and go to Jesus' story of the prodigal son, where the son literally tells his dad to die, and then goes into whatever town, spends all this money, but ends up poor and eating out of a pig's soul. And he returns back to his father and is like, Dad, I deserve to be treated like one of your servants because I treated you so badly. But then instead, the father's like, no, like welcoming him back with open arms. And when I compare this with Revan, in the Revan book and in general, Revan is known as the prodigal knight. Just like he's the prodigal son, he's the prodigal knight, bringing back and conveying that, since Cassie, you said you have an English degree, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic conveys that regardless of your choices that you make or who you were before, it is never too late to choose who you are to become. And then throw in my concrete details somewhere in that essay, but Revan just resembles that prodigal son as the prodigal knight. That kind of continuation, that mercy and compassion, despite, of course, like, you can say, like, of course the Jedi Council wronged him by erasing his memory, but it brought him back to who he was before he was brainwashed by Vitiate. That he was that same Revan who fought in the Mandalorian Wars because he didn't like how the Jedi Council didn't stand up for those who were dying on the Outer Rim. So he took action. It is all about going back to your roots at who you are as the core of a person and finding that, in my opinion, I believe all humans are altruistic, and there are studies on this, but going back to the altruistic behavior we are as human beings and being our own prodigal knights and bringing that out into the world and helping others through there. So, like, if I think about it, every single quest that Revan does answers a little bit for his past, like helping Juhani and Cathar. It's his Sith Empire that did it. Also with Karth, his Sith Empire bombed Telos, and with Jolee separating his family. Who else? Canderous with defeating the Mandalorians and scattering them. Revan is making amends for his past through each and every person in his party, and each and every person of his party resembles a part of him that makes him the prodigal knight. So that would be my thesis.
That's a great thesis. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for, again, giving me the space to share, because I'd say now I kind of want to, as we kind of wrap up here, talk about Korriban, I want to deliver my thanks to you both, Brian and Cassia, that Kotor is the hidden gem of the Star Wars universe, I would say. Kotor wanted to provide discussions and opportunities to break the typical lightsaber blaster wielding people that we are in Battlefront, and are able to play a narrative-based game that causes us to question our own beliefs and make our own decisions. Like if you hop on Reddit and you hear anyone who does a dark side playthrough, they will tell you they feel like a terrible person afterward. So I'm grateful to you two for elevating the story of KOTOR and bringing back a 2003 game into the Star Wars community, because, in other words, you both resemble the prodigal knights of probably the Star Wars podcast scene, and bringing back a game that is long gone into the limelight. So thank you so much for bringing my childhood back to modern day.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's
Brian and I, we try to kind of highlight and just kind of bring to light this gem from 2003, and like there kind of just wasn't like a main KOTOR podcast, so we're just trying to build a little community and kind of highlight this beautiful gem from 2003 and 2005, and it's been a fun journey. And then, sorry, I think I kind of interrupted you, Brian.
Oh no, yeah, it was no, exactly what you were saying. We're just trying to bring it to light and to really kind of get into the nuance of what made Knights of the Old Republic so special then and still so special now, and how it's able to connect with people on all sorts of levels. And that's one of the great things about the game, is that you boot up the game and you hit new game, and then you are making your character, and it can be anyone you want it to be. It can be you, it can be someone that you wish you were, or someone that you see, or someone that you would like to see in this game. And I think that that's a really cool way to experience Star Wars, and why it resounded with a lot of people who might not have, seen themselves in the stories or felt themselves in the stories. So this was a way to do that and explore, what it really means to be in Star Wars, other than, like you said, firing a blaster and lighting up a lightsaber. There's more to the ideals in this whole big universe that got created for us.
Yep, for sure. And I definitely say, in terms of like just thinking about being on this journey with you both, since we are called the Ebon Hawk Podcast, now that I think of it, I think we as listeners should be called Giska within ourselves, since we're on board with you guys on this journey throughout each planet. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you for giving me the space to talk about bringing politics and service back into the minds of Star Wars fans and listeners.
Politics and service and bringing real world issues to light, that belongs in Star Wars. And I think what makes a good Star Wars story is the philosophy, and not just like a bombastic lightsaber fight or a hallway scene. So we'll see what happens in the future, but I think the storytelling is going to evolve, and I have great hopes for Star Wars Acolyte. And thanks again for coming on. You're a great guest, and I love getting your takes, especially with politics.
Of course. I mean, I'm not paying to be a poli-sci major for nothing. So here I am.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining up with us and talking a little bit about Korriban and, kind of what it means in the Star Wars world and how we think it would play out on screen. Gabe, anyone listening out there, if they want to, find out more about you or connect with you online or anything like that, is there anything you want to pitch or share, or where can people find you? Yeah, the floor is yours. So let people know about what you got going on.
You want to follow me on Insta and dive into some philosophical conversation, or just talk about Star Wars, or just learn more about me and my own takes of life in the real world, or how Star Wars resembles the real world. My @ on Instagram is @the Gabe, Gabe, Young, Young. And if you're in the gaming mood, like you want to hop on Battlefront, whether it be the old one, or you want to play some Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, or Republic Commando, or even just, chat over Kotor through a gaming means, my Discord is Young, Young, Knights, Knights 2, and I'm pulling up the number right now, but that's similar to my Steam name. You can find me from there. Or anywhere, but then if you find me in the Kotor Discord server or any other Star Wars servers, there you go. My number is 0527, so feel free to add me. Mention that you came from the Ebon Hawk podcast, because I'd love to just talk about how awesome Cassie and Brian are, for one, but number two, definitely know that, at least get familiar with where you found me from, and get to continue the conversation of how awesome Kotor is and why more people should know about it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Definitely reach out, because those games are a good time. So definitely get on board with playing those. But I think for now, we found the star map in the tomb on Korriban. So we are headed to our next destination. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this one, Cassia.
All right. May the Force be with you, and we'll be back soon.